The King of the Netherlands is apologizing for his country's role in the global slave trade. Now, King Willem-Alexander also asked for forgiveness for his ancestors profiting off that slave trade and doing nothing to stop it. The Netherlands outlawed slavery some 160 years ago, but it is estimated that the royal family earned the equivalent of $600 million in taxes and other fees from Dutch colonies that practiced slavery. Listen.
The horrors of slavery in the past. The consequences of this can still be felt today in racism in our society. On December 19th last year, the Prime Minister apologized on the behalf of the Dutch government for the fact that people, in the name of the Dutch state, were made into commodities, exploited, and mistreated for centuries. Today, I stand here before you as your king and as part of the government. And today I make these apologies myself.
Joining me now for more on this is Linda Nooitmer. She is the chairman of the National Institute for the Study of Dutch Slavery and its Legacy. And I want to thank you for joining us on this. I want to ask you, how does this latest development move the needle on this deplorable history? Why is it significant that the apology come from the royal family?
Thank you. Because of the fact of the symbolic the fact that the king is a symbol, not only in Holland, but also in the Caribbean part of Holland and in Suriname. And he is head of state. And the only thing we always said as NINSE is that it's not about the citizens, but it is the Dutch government who has to acknowledge this slave history. So the symbolic part of the symbolic value of the king is very big, and we've seen it in the reactions in the community.
Yeah, and yet this apology has been divisive at times, even marked by acrimony. In your opinion, why is that? I mean, should the apology stand as is with its presumed sincerity?
No, it shouldn't stand as is, because for us, the agenda hasn't changed. The main thing for NINSE is that we come to eliminating the negative social, economic, and cultural impact of the slavery past. But in the discussion, this will help. And I think that we have come a long way since Black Pete in 1927. And now we have another phase we're going in, and with the acknowledgement of the king, it will help us in the process.
You know, a reminder that it was hundreds of thousands of people from Africa and Asia that were trafficked by those Dutch merchants. That's between the 17th and 19th centuries. I think some people would even quibble with the $600 million mark. So then I ask you, is the apology enough? How does this move on to what you know is a global discussion about reparations?
Well, I think that this can be an example, because you're right, the transatlantic slave history is not a Dutch instance. It is an international instance. And I think that if we talk about reparations, if we talk about investing in communities of people of African descent, mainly from the colonies, then I think that we have to acknowledge this on worldly level. So I expect that this can be the first of many apologies to come, and that it will help the international reparation agenda that involves all people of African descent whose ancestors were enslaved. And if you look at the continent in Africa, there has a lot to be done that also has bounds with the slave history.
You know, some would say that these apologies are still late in the game. What do you think has changed in order to enable an apology both from government and the royal families?
I think that because the NINSE exists for 21 years, and the community has been talking about this for 60, 70 years. One main fact are the Black Lives Matter demonstrations, in which the Dutch people in Holland came to the realization that we still have institutionalized racism in Holland. And we live in a global area where knowledge is going fast. We live in a period where we are questioning things that were always like they've always been, and this also, and we tend to talk about human rights again. And if we're talking about human rights, but we still accept that people of African descent in the whole world still have a marginalized place in the world, then I think that people understand that is not um, uh, the right thing to do. And I think in Holland that has also helped us in this struggle. But that doesn't mean that we are there yet, because we still have to face people who don't want to take notice of this history. And so there is still enough work to be done.
Yeah, for sure, historical ignorance has marred all of these discussions. And I take note that you do feel that the Black Lives Matter protests were an inflection point. I have to ask you, and I mean, given what's happened in the last week here in the United States, even with the affirmative action ruling from the Supreme Court, I have to ask you, what do you say to the 16-year-old disadvantaged socioeconomically a black teenager, Dutch? What do you say to them about what this apology will mean to them?
I think that this apology, because as I said, the agenda hasn't changed. We are not celebrating as if we are there yet. For us, we always say the apologies are symbolic. They help us, and the fact that the king asked for forgiveness, they help us in the process. And I think that everything we want to do after the apologies from Prime Minister Rutte, the comma, involves changing the narrative, changing the position of people of African descent. So for him, for that 16-year-old, I always want to emphasize that look at how your situation is changing. We are making sure that your situation will change, that you can have a level playing field, that you don't have to face racism. And if you face racism, we have the things in order to challenge that. So, and that's why I say that we are not there yet. The symbolic part, that is okay. We need those symbols. But at the end of the day, we still have a lot to do, because to be frank, if you're living in the Caribbean part of Holland or in Suriname or in the impoverished neighborhoods in Holland, then this doesn't change your situation. So there are more steps to make.
Yeah, understood. And we thank you for weighing in and certainly giving us the relevance of this apology today. Linda Nooitmer, thanks so much. Appreciate it.